to do what I do every Wednesday and Friday night. That's check out 30 Minutes Live with CDP coming at you from Ontario right on your Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channels. You can check it out every Wednesday and Friday night just like I do. 30 Minutes Live with CDP.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to 30 Minutes Live with CDP today, special edition here at 4 o'clock. I'm going to bring my guest on from WGR Channel 2 in Buffalo, Pete Gallivan, who's been with them for 25 years. He's their daytime co-anchor, and he also produces a weekly feature called Unknown Stories of Western New York, which highlights local history in Buffalo. So I really appreciate Pete coming on again today. So just give me 1 second, guys, and I will bring on Pete. Hey, Pete, how you doing?
Hey, Chris, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming on. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, I hear you great.
Okay, no problem. This technology is amazing nowadays.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. So, anyways, hope you're doing well in Buffalo, and hope things are getting better over there as well.
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, this morning we took a major step forward in the studio. My co-anchor and Melissa and I didn't have to be 10 feet apart. We were 6 feet apart. So, with us fully vaccinated and following the Center for Disease Control guidelines and New York State guidelines, we were able to be a little closer together and look like we like each other because we do.
Yeah, it's been a while. You guys are way ahead of us here in Ontario. A lot of us haven't even had our first vaccine shots yet.
Yeah. That's it's tough. It's amazing. You don't realize, because especially living in a border town like Buffalo, I grew up walking across the Peace Bridge and swimming on both sides of the Niagara River, and it's you don't realize how powerful that border can be until you have something like this, and you have not only the border restrictions, but the disparity and the delays in getting vaccine to the population. So I'm sorry that you're behind us, but I'm glad you're catching up.
Yes, Ontario's going to open up slowly June 2nd. I'm getting my first vaccine shot the end of May. So I'm just hoping maybe by July or August, they might have the border open, because I was supposed to take my mom to a Billy Joel concert last year at New Era Field, and that got postponed because of the COVID, and they rescheduled it for this August. So I'm just crossing my fingers that I'll be able to go by August, but I figure I'll have to have both shots before I can. I'm assuming in the future that people crossing the border are going to have vaccination papers.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And when you do cross the border and go see Billy Joel, you're going to have to get a hold of me, because I'll be there as well with my wife and my daughter. We went to see him a couple of years back in Madison Square Garden. If you ever get a chance to go see him in the Garden, that is like seeing the Montreal Canadiens in the old Montreal Forum. Or Maple Leafs in the Garden. It's in their home arena. So.
Yeah, I've been to Madison Square Garden, but not for a concert, but it's an amazing arena. I saw a couple Rangers games and a Raptors-Knicks game there. This is in 2019, and I've never even been to a concert before, and I'm a huge Billy Joel fan, so I'm really hoping I can take her in August, because she turned 75 last year, so it's so hopefully, like I said, things get better by then. So
yeah, God bless her. We were hoping to go see the Goo Goo Dolls last summer in Toronto, and obviously that didn't work out. We were supposed to see Letterkenny here in Buffalo. Actually, this was a funny story. My wife and I are literally on the way to the show at Kleinan's Music Hall, waiting in the drive-through at a fast food restaurant because we had to get something quick, and the show was canceled. And that was March 12th, and that was kind of like the beginning of the end. From that, everything started being canceled. But so I was disappointed about that. Hopefully this summer we'll be able to get to all those shows that were canceled or delayed last summer and get back to normal soon enough.
Definitely. Pete, I was going to say, is it okay if I show a video clip of you?
No,
it's
absolutely.
Just like, it's from WGR anyways. It's just, I always like to do this with my guests now, just show a little video clip of their work. So the clip's courtesy of WGR. Just give me 1 second. It's only 40 seconds. I'm still learning all this technology. It's just amazing.
have to celebrate Pete Gallivan. He arrived at Channel 2 25 years ago today. And as you can see, look at that, his very first appearance on our air. TV news was a little bit different
Can
back
you
then,
hear it
but
okay,
Pete's
Pete?
hair, it has remained the same over the years. Not a wrinkle either, which is really unbelievable. Good genes in that family. Pete, we are so lucky to have you here at Channel 2 and here in Buffalo representing our incredible city and just being an all-around great guy and great contributor to Channel 2.
Well, I appreciate that. And 20 plus years getting up at this hour. The bags have caught up with me a little bit, but yeah, 25 years ago today.
We have special mood lighting for you. You have the special light kit.
The Sybil Shepherd focus, right?
Right.
Well, Pete, congratulations. Here's to 25 more here at Channel 2 for you. Thanks for watching Daybreak, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Anyways, Pete, I was going to say congratulations on hitting 25 years. That's amazing nowadays.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it was. It's kind of like the same with the Sabres. I spent 6 years in Rochester and then got called up to the Bigs.
Wow. Yeah, like I said, it goes by quick, doesn't it? The time, it just goes by quick.
Blink of an eye. Yeah, it was. I came to. I started my career in radio in small towns in Western New York and Central New York, and then got into Rochester TV first, and then radio shortly thereafter in Rochester. Worked at 2 TV stations and let me see, four or five radio stations. You know, because it got easy once you had all these duopolies and radio companies buying. So we had my last radio job. I was the news director of 3 stations simultaneously before I got the offer to come back home to Buffalo at a station which is literally 5 blocks from where I grew up. So it's it was great, and 25 years later, I'm still there.
Oh, I was going to say, I just got some questions I was going to ask you. Is it okay if I start now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. First one I wanted to ask you, Pete, is can you just tell my audience a little bit about yourself and when did you know you wanted to decide a career in broadcasting media?
Well, I as I said, I grew up on the lower west side of Buffalo, about a mile from the Peace Bridge, over by 2 blocks from Kleinhans Music Hall. For anyone who's familiar with Buffalo, wound up going to Buffalo Public Schools. And graduated. Actually, I started at the Buffalo Academy for the Visual and Performing Arts, better known as Performing Arts here in the city, in 1979. And that was the same year Fame came out. So being a city kid on the west side, you can imagine the amount of grief I took with, hey, are you guys dancing on cabs? Where's your leotard, Pete? That sort of thing. But I took media arts at Performing Arts and spent 4 years doing that. My senior year, I interned at Channel 7 here in town with legendary newscaster Irv Weinstein, who is beloved, and not only in Buffalo but all over Southern Ontario too. Mm-hmm. I mean, people still ask me if Tonawanda and Cheektowaga are burning because of Irv's style, but it was just it gave me a little taste of what it was like. And then I went to SUNY Brockport and kept with the broadcasting there, and knew I wanted to do something in broadcasting. I just didn't know what. I thought I wanted to be a photographer or someone behind the scenes, maybe a producer. But the first job I got was a small radio station just outside of Brockport, about a mile from campus, and started doing fill-in DJ work, sales, a little bit of everything. And then one day, the news director at the radio station quit. And my boss comes in and says, "Hey, Pete, guess what you're doing today?" And he plops the paper and a couple of press releases on my desk and says, "Looks like you're the news director now." So that's how I started out in actual broadcast news, and that was 1987. And at that point, I still wanted to make a career of radio. got a job at a slightly bigger station in Canandaigua doing field reporting, and I was reporting in across the Finger Lakes region every afternoon and evening, and kind of honing my craft on how to cover town hall meetings and how to cover small town politics and sports and different things. And I got a job as a news director in the thriving metropolis of Warsaw, New York. It's as big as it sounds, and that got a little taste of managing a small news department, and then just kind of the ball was rolling from there. I was in contact with the NBC station in Rochester all the time as a stringer, phoning in stories just about every day saying, hey, you may want to check this out in Genesee County. You may want to check this out in Batavia, in Warsaw, and Livingston County. And ultimately, a weekend reporting position opened up at Channel 10 in Rochester. And the assignment editor, who I'd been talking to for probably 2 years at this point, said, hey, you should put in for it. I'm like, I don't have a resume tape, or I don't have anything on video. But sure. So I sent an audio cassette of some of my radio work, and got an interview, got hired as the weekend reporter. Then shortly thereafter, I got hired as the overnight news anchor at WHAM in Rochester, which is a news talk giant, 50,000 watt. I mean, it goes, you can hear it at night through New England, and it's far west is beyond Detroit. I mean, and to the Carolinas. It's got a huge reach. And that year, with me working the overnights, I'm sitting there going, okay, what's going to happen in the middle of the night in Rochester, New York? Well, we had a major ice storm, which knocked power out to 650,000 people. And I was the first to report that in the overnight. In fact, I remember distinctly, it's one of the best sound bites I ever got. I got a call. It was just raining still in downtown Rochester. I'm looking out the window, and I get a call, and I instinctively start rolling tape on it. And it's a guy in the southern Finger Lakes. And I said, hey, what's going on? He says, I'm calling from Naples. I go, hey, how's it going down there? It's like 2:00 in the morning. And he says, well, I'm just sitting here in the dark listening to the trees break. And you can hear the trees snapping in the background. And lo and behold, the next morning, the ice storm had moved from south to north. Downtown Rochester was just caked in a layer of ice. I mean, sheets were sliding off of buildings, power lines were down, trees were down. There were parts without power for up to 2 weeks after that. So that was kind of the Bills' first Super Bowl. That notice I said the Bills' first Super Bowl, not their first Super Bowl loss, but was in the studio at WHAM watching that the final moments tick away on that one. Terry Anderson, the Batavia journalist who was held hostage for, I believe, 3 years, was freed in the overnight hours. The first Gulf War launched in the overnight hours at that. So it was a big year to be working that shift. And then I kind of progressed in Rochester radio, jumped over to a different TV station, and ultimately came here to Buffalo in '96.
I was going to say, well, you already answered my next question. I'm just going to do the last part of that question. Did you have a mentor in school or when you were first starting out in the industry?
I was lucky enough to have a guy at Channel 7. I'm not sure if you remember him, Clip Smith. He was a sports guy, and
yes,
he was famous for his bad puns.
Oh, yes.
He had the sharpest memory of anyone I have ever seen in this business or out. He would work without scripts. He would memorize the copy. He would work without scripts. And just an unbelievable guy. He was my direct supervisor when I was interning at Channel 7 in the sports department. And he let me do things that normal high school interns wouldn't be able to do. It was typically it was sitting and logging USFL games. So I got to see Jim Kelly before he was a Bill, just sitting there watching and logging the scoring plays. But I was the only one who knew soccer in the building when the Buffalo Stallions hired a new head coach named Louis Dabo. And this was 1983. I have no idea why that name sticks to me to this day. But they said, yeah, you go down and do the interview. And I'm a 17-year-old kid at this point. I'm like, okay. So Clip Smith is probably one name that stands out in my memory as a person who really impressed me early on. In college, I had a lot of people who taught me different life lessons. You know, I had broadcasting teachers, sure. We had a gentleman named Barry Goldfarb who had a wide variety of experience in the industry, and he ultimately went on as teaching at, I believe he's still at RIT in Rochester, and he taught me just a ton about broadcasting. We had another professor who wrote for Billboard magazine, and his discussions tore down that wall of celebrity, you know, because he's telling stories about interviewing some of the legendary names in rock and roll history, as if he was interviewing the sanitation commissioner for the local town. And that really taught me that, you know, the people you're interviewing are just people. And your job is to, when you talk to them, in most cases, is to get to the person, not the celebrity or not the title. Get to the person. And that was one life lesson and industry lesson that I took from that professor. I learned a lot about hard work, about commitment from my teammates at Brockport. I played first soccer, then hockey, and we had my junior year. Probably the biggest challenge I had in my young life at that point. We went into the season. I had transitioned from soccer to hockey, and the coach who had come in and kind of inherited the team from the year before, from the previous coach, who actually I was supposed to play the year before because I had been recruited by the previous coach to play both soccer and hockey at that point, because I had skated with the team the year before. He left, and that coach had to take on his recruits. He didn't. I just stuck to soccer that year, but the year after that, he kind of wanted to, you know, put his own mark on the team. He had started the program and left for a period of time, and then come back. Bob Peterson, and he cut the co-captains from the year before. You know, he felt that they behaved like it was their team, not his. He wanted to send a message, and the message was that every player, with the exception of his son from the year before, walked off the team. So we went into that season with a team that included, I think, 2 players with previous college experience. And our first game was Colgate's home opener. So we were playing up to against a D1 team in their home opener with a team of kids who played club hockey and played high school hockey the year before, and a few juniors. But we wound up going 1-24 that year. The players from the year before came to every game with their Brockport hockey gear, just razzing us and cheering against us. It confused a lot of teams that came into our barn to play. And see this whole crowd of guys with Brockport hockey gear cheering against us and just giving us a hard time and cheering for the opposing team. But that group of guys, I think I've played hockey and soccer for, you know, going on 45 years now. And
you just answered my next question.
Yeah, and that group of guys, I've never been closer to that group of players than any group of players in my life, and since then. In fact, my center bought the house right next door to me, so I'm still on his right wing this all these years later. But so, I mean, that year taught me so much about, sticking with it and persevering. The next year we won 10 games. 2 years later, that team broke the record. I think it's a record that still stands for victories in the season. And it was just an unbelievable group of guys to be able to come together, come to the rink day in and day out, knowing we were going to lose. I mean, we lost to the defending national champs RIT that year 20-0 and got outshot 95-5. How'd you like to be the goalie that stops 75 shots and still loses by that score? It's just wow. It was just an incredible season. But it taught me a lot. I've always said that you learn more in defeat than you do in victory. And we if that's true, we learned one hell of a lot that year.
I was going to say, I consider Buffalo almost half Canadian because you guys love beer like we do over here in Ontario. You love hockey. And before COVID struck, I was coming over once a month or whatever. And it's a nice area, the Buffalo area. I see why a lot of athletes and that want to stay in Buffalo, Amherst, Niagara Falls when they retire from sports.
Yeah, and particularly the Canadian guys. And there are some guys who never played here that retired here. Marcel Dion had a memorabilia shop right here in the town that I live in, and still got over in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Daryl Sittler came here and lived for a while. His daughter went through the Nichols program and played hockey here. So there are a lot of guys that didn't even play here or played a short period of time and are better known in other markets. Guy I still skate with, Craig Muni, won 3 cups in Edmonton, but he retired here in Buffalo. And I asked him that. I asked him that very question sitting on the bench with him about 6 months ago. Why here in Buffalo? And he said, because the people are passionate. It's close enough to Canada that you can get across the bridge. The quality of life, you've got everything you need in a small city here that you'd have in a big city. Good restaurants, theater, music, but what everyone says is it comes down to the people. And I don't know, maybe we're drinking from the same Lake Erie / Niagara River water on both sides of the bridge, but I've always felt incredibly at home in Canada and here. In fact, my first year of hockey was spent in the Ridgeway barn playing under the portrait of the Queen. So it's I like to think that I learned to play. Well, I learned to skate in the United States, learned to play in Canada.
Yeah, I was going to say, everybody that's been on, I've been doing the podcast for a year now. It took me a while to get guests on, but I'll say this, your area, Buffalo, has been great for getting guys to come on. I've had like all the guys from WGR pretty well come on here, and yourself, Keith Radford. And then in another week or so, I'm going to have Dave from 97 Rock on.
Yes,
Yeah, he's a nice guy too. Everybody in this profession, everyone in this profession, especially from the Buffalo media market, has been really good with me because I'm trying to break into radio at my age. I'm a little bit older. I'm almost 49, and I got a taste of broadcasting, doing camera work with Rogers TV here a couple years ago, doing some Guelph Storm games, and I created my podcast a year ago, and this is something I want to pursue. And everybody in your profession, from Buffalo and from New England and ESPN and that, have been really great, especially John Murphy, the voice of the Bills, too.
Oh, Murph is the class of the market. I mean, he's just an amazing guy. And, there are a lot of people in not only broadcasting, but in all walks of life that you get a certain opinion before you meet them, and then you meet them, and it may not match up with Murph is what you see is what you get. And he's just, he was one of those guys that I clicked with when I first came to town. And I've always admired his work at Channel 7 and obviously with the Bills. And to have the insurmountable mountain in front of you of having to fill Van Miller's shoes, it's just astounding that he has been able to carry the ball after taking over for a legend like Van. Much like Rick Jenneret and Ted Darling back in the 70s with the Sabres. And Rick's become a Buffalo icon.
I was going to say, and everybody has really been great with me, because I thought when I was starting to do this, I don't know if it's going to get guests, because I'm still learning and I'm trying to improve, and everybody has been really great about it, and it makes me want to even keep improving more. And this is why I want to try to get into radio at my age, just because this is something I love to do. I love talking to people like yourself, and I like asking questions and learning stuff.
You know what you just said is why you'll be successful in radio. Because so many people think of the word interview. I'm going to interview. I always tell people that I go out and do a story with is I'm not going to interview. I'm going to talk to you. Because when you say I'm going to have a conversation with you, it's totally different than I want to do an interview with you. People get stiff. They tighten up. And it's just, and you have found the key that it's not about interviewing people. It's about just talking to people. And listening, one thing I learned from Larry King, because when I worked overnights, I was the board op in Rochester for his show, and is the one thing that struck me early in my career was he doesn't come in with a notebook full of questions. He's got an idea of what he wants to talk about, but he said that I find when I have all my questions written down, I'm reading my questions, not listening to what they're saying, and not talking and having a conversation. So, and he said, and the key to an interview is listening to what someone's saying and letting the discussion go where it may.
And I'm learning that too. Eric Smith, the Raptors play-by-play radio voice, told me that too. And at first, when I started doing this, I do write down what I want to ask on a piece of paper, but I've been lucky enough over the months to get a little bit better with that. And with StreamYard on here, I can put the questions I really want to ask. I can type them on, put them on my graphics. And then when I'm listening to that guest, if they've already answered it, I can just avoid asking them that question. So I'm still learning to work on that. And hopefully I'm getting better on that every week.
Yeah. It's from what I've seen, I've watched a couple of your podcasts, and it's very relaxed. It's a discussion, and I think you're onto something for sure.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Are you still okay for a few more questions, Pete?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
The house is quiet for once.
Okay.
My two dogs are actually laying down and not bugging me for treats.
Oh, what's your name of your dogs and what breed are they?
We've got Marley. Where'd she go? She took off. Marley's a greyhound, and that we rescued. Our fifth greyhound that we've rescued, and our other dog is Addie. It's a bulldog Boston Terrier mix that my daughter rescued from the SPCA, and it got into an accident. So it's this just spark plug of a little dog. It's got 3 legs. And it just tears around, terrorizes the other dog. It's sometimes quite the show in this house, but both of them are sleeping. It might be too warm for them.
Yeah, my dog passed away unfortunately a couple years ago. Riley, he was a Corgi Shepherd. He was 15. He passed away from oral cancer. But every dog and cat I've had in my life has always been adopted from an animal shelter or a humane society. So when I do get a dog in the future again, I will definitely adopt and not shop. That's how I always look at it.
Yeah, I look up the Greyhound rescue groups. They're amazing, and they're popping up in every community, it seems. So. Yeah.
And I've volunteered here at a local humane society for almost 10 years as well as a dog walker. I would do it almost 5-6 days a week and fundraiser. And I actually miss doing that. And I would like to hopefully get back into doing that volunteer work with an animal shelter again in the future.
Cool. One thing I did see is you're going to be talking to Dave Jickster next week, and he'll probably talk about it as well. One thing I did want to put out there, Dave and I are part of our teammates with the 11-day power play. And I know you've talked about that in the past on some of your podcasts. And for your listeners who don't know, you probably saw the group in Alberta back in February in I mean, pucks were cracking. It was so cold out there. We're going to break their record in November outside at Riverworks. It's not going to be nearly as cold, but a lot of people had said, well, is it competitive? When Mike Lezakowski and Amy Lezakowski, who are the creators, they came up with this idea 4.5 years ago after Mike's mom passed of cancer. It's all about raising money for Roswell Park and some other cancer support services. So they've raised $5.2 million in the first 4 years and opening it up to the community. They're going back to the original 20-on-20 format, just platooning different shifts out for 11 days, 252 hours. But when Mike came up with the original idea, he actually called the group in Alberta who held the record, and he was kind of apprehensive about calling them because he wasn't sure, what the reaction was going to be. What do you mean you're going to break our record? The first thing they said to him was, "That's awesome. How can we help?" So they've had this great cooperative relationship over the years. And this is, they broke the record in 2017. And then they opened it up to the community the last 3 years and made it a community shift where different groups come in, 1,500 players, I think was the last one, and just raise money and play hockey for 11 days. Well, this year it's the 5th year, and they decided to go back to the original format and get the world record back for the longest game. But we're all fundraising, and it's just we're also all training. We're doing our dryland training right now. We're going to be doing a lot more ice sessions because, I'm 55 years old. I'll be 56 at game time, and the second oldest player out there. And it's obviously going to be physically taxing, but also mentally taxing. 253 hours, 4 hours on, 8 hours off, 4 hours on, 8 hours off for 11 days. But the bottom line is, I lost both my parents and both in-laws to cancer.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And I've also had several family members who have beaten cancer, thank God. So you get a real unique perspective on the difference that institutions like Roswell can make, and the research that's going on that's giving hope to tomorrow's cancer patients, but also Camp Good Days, which is something that in Guelph you may not be familiar with, but it's a camp on Cuco Lake in the Finger Lakes region that focuses on not only children with cancer, but also their siblings and families that deal with cancer. And they give them an experience at summer camp so they can just be kids, away from treatment, away from, the looks that they get from their classmates if they go into school with a cap on because their head was shaved. And, it just gives them a chance to be kids. And we're also benefiting Make-A-Wish and cancer research at Oshai Children's Hospital. So it's just an incredible event and an incredible family that the Lezakowskis have created with, and now, 40 players are training hard and experience levels, by the way, all the way from people who just started the games as adults to people who played high-level college hockey. In fact, the original team included Andrew Peters, Jeff Peters, his brother Jeff, who played in the American League and had a cup of coffee in the National Hockey League. And it's just an amazing group of people. And more importantly, the cause hits everyone. You'd be hard-pressed to find a family or a person that hasn't been directly impacted by cancer. So if any of your listeners want to check out more information about the 11-Day Power Play, it's 11daypowerplay.com, and just go on, check it out. You can see the players, the Frozen 40, as we're calling ourselves, that are taking part, and the walks of life that they come from. Aaron Menkowski, who's the morning meteorologist over at Channel 7, is also taking part in it. We've got a guy named Michael Mead, who is the U.S. CEO for Sullivan's Brewery in Kilkenny, Ireland. He's taking part. He's a Buffalo guy. And it's just the different people that are coming together for this cause, and that's greater than all of us. it's inspiring. It's an honor to be part of them. And, it's something that I would love for, all of your listeners to at least take a look, donate if you can, but realize the impact that cancer's had and the stories of all these guys, because everyone's got a personal story about why they're doing it. And it's just heartwarming,
And cancer affects everybody. It doesn't matter where you live, or it doesn't discriminate. And then, like I said, I think that's another reason why I like your community so much is I find a lot of people love doing charity volunteer work. And I've done it myself over the years. I was a Big Brother for 16 years. And I did
God bless you. That's awesome.
Thank you. I love the experience, and I did the Humane Society for 10 years. And right now I'm just volunteering with Rogers TV, but it's always good to give back.
Yeah.
And that's why one of the reasons I like your community so much, because I see the stuff on the internet or TV, what you guys are doing, and I think it's important to give back and help others.
Yeah. It's a phenomenal feeling, and not only for yourself, but when you see the camaraderie that's involved, the sense of community, it's just amazing. And it's like you say, here in Buffalo and Southern Ontario, I never really thought of that border as, I was blown away when they adopted the law that you needed a passport to cross. I'm like, passport? Here's a quick story about how the border in a border town just kind of goes away. I was in Pennsylvania and I was picking up a 6-pack of beer, and I grabbed a Molson Export, and the pricing was whatever for domestic and then whatever for imported. And the guy charges to be in the imported price. I'm like, this isn't imported, it's Canadian.
Well, we're next door neighbors, the way I look at it. We're next door neighbors.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm only an hour and a half from the Lewiston border. Like on a good day on the QEW, depending on traffic and if there's any construction or accidents, I can get to Lewiston in about an hour and a half. The Peace Bridge is about an hour and 45, hour 50 minutes from my place, but it doesn't feel like I'm in this. Like it's as soon as I go across the border, I just feel home over there. Yeah.
Every hockey parent or player knows exactly where Guelph is, and every small town in Southern Ontario. My son played a season in the GoJ, the Greater Ontario Junior Hockey League.
Yes. Actually, I had a guy, Jake Jeffrey, who's involved with that league with the Strathroy Rockets. So next time I talk to Jake, I'll let him know that.
Yeah, so he played for the Buffalo Regals in there, and
yes,
going to those small community barns I just absolutely love it. You've got some places that have got the put in new arenas, like Port Colborne's got a beautiful arena, the Leisuroplex in Fort Erie, but those small towns that you go into, and it's the same arena that not only those kids but their grandfathers played in, and it's such a cool experience. And that's the one thing I always admire is about hockey in particular is it's so rife with tradition. A great example is the Leisuroplex in Fort Erie. So it's a new arena, but you go into the feature arena and they've made it look like a classic old Canadian hockey barn. It doesn't look like when you go in there. I mean, they've got the portraits on the wall and all the people who played before, and it's just a cool atmosphere.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, like I said, we lost the OHL for almost a year and a half now. We've lost the Go Junior Hockey League, so hopefully the OHL is planning on coming back October 7th, and the Go Junior Hockey Leagues hopefully will be back in the fall too. Because I miss being. We have an OHL team here called the Guelph Storm, and I love it because some of these kids, they do go on to the AHL or the NHL, and it's like I got to see them play here, and it's really good hockey. And sometimes I follow that more than the NHL. Because it's just because these kids are they're and you get to know them being a camera operator for Rogers TV. You get to see behind the scenes and see these guys behind the games and stuff like that, and I miss that.
Yeah, I skated actually in Erie 2 weeks ago with 4 guys from the Erie Otters, and I mean it's just the level of talent is unbelievable. And I always say to any hockey fan, if you want to see good hockey, go up and catch an OHL game. I've seen OHL in London when Patrick Kane was up there.
Oh yeah, the Knights there, they get almost 10,000 fans a game there.
Oh yeah, the Hunter brothers are doing a great job there.
Oh, yeah.
Kitchener, when Justin Bailey was up there, the Kitchener Rangers.
Yeah.
And I saw a game up in Mississauga against actually the Steelheads were playing against the Guelph Storm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the Storm are the last team to win the OHL championship 2 years ago, and I got to go on the ice and celebrate with the team after.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really cool, and you get to know these guys, and you know them as people instead of just hockey players, and that's what I miss too.
Yeah, it was the year PK Subban's brother was playing for the Storm.
Subban's brother.
No, you know what I'm thinking. I'm sorry. It was the Brampton Battalion that he was playing for.
Yes. Yeah, all the brothers.
I saw Guelph and Kitchener. That's right.
Yep.
He was playing for Brampton.
Yeah, so like I said, I really miss that and that. So, but I was gonna say I'm just gonna ask you a couple more questions, Pete. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, without a doubt.
No problem. I was gonna say, again, how did you end up at WGR Channel 2 in Buffalo? And when you started with the station, did you have anyone that took you under their wing as a rookie reporter?
Yeah, when I came to Channel 2, they were buried deep in third place. Had gone through probably a decade of basement dwelling. And the news director at the time really expanded the hiring and really dedicated themselves. The management at the time dedicated themselves to bringing in a lot of different talent, and they brought in some very good people, and me along with them. But luckily, I was able to ride their coattails. But Adam Bonini was in that wave that came in, and some of the other reporters that came after that when Gannett took over. So it was we had improvement, and and now we're in most newscasts #1. So it's been really rewarding seeing that growth. But as far as someone I looked up to and I really leaned on for advice, not only as a broadcaster, but more as a storyteller, was one of the greatest writers I've ever had the pleasure of working with was Rich Kellman. Rich Kellman was at the station since the 70s, and I think he came to the station in 75. And I totally refrained from mentioning at any point that I grew up watching him. But Rich was so approachable. He would if he was asked to pick up a camera, he'd go out and shoot his own stories at a time when reporters weren't shooting their own stories. And he just had a way of telling a story and getting to the meat of it. And it wasn't a report. He would get to the emotion of a story. He had just a real expertise in just letting the story tell itself. That was one of the biggest things that I learned from him is, you let the story tell itself. You're just kind of guiding the story. And Rich he was just so approachable. He was just an amazing guy to work with. Ed Kilgore was another guy who had been there for a long, long time that I loved leaning on him. I did a lot of sports stories in my early years there. And Ed and I had a lot of time to discuss things, and from hockey to football to, the good old days of the Buffalo Braves in the NBA. And another person as far as on-camera performance and just really taking charge of a room and talking to people was Kevin O'Connell. I've never seen someone who can command the attention so effortlessly of a room than Kevin. He was just, one of those guys who's larger than life,
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was your cell phone or not. If you needed, are you okay still?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Next question. I only got a couple more questions for you, Pete, that I wanted to ask you. What was your favorite story in an interview, or I guess favorite story or interview or person you've talked to over the years, and favorite personalities you've worked with over the years at WGRZ Channel 2 in Buffalo?
I'll start with the favorite personalities. I mean, I love the people I work with now, and I've worked with a lot of people over the years. Um, there, one name that comes to mind is Chesley McNeil. He's a meteorologist that's now with our Atlanta station in the same corporate family. And Chesley was I mean, always happy. One of the things that's his hallmark now in Atlanta is Monday motivation. He posts a motivational slogan every Monday, and on his Instagram and his Twitter feed. And he was just one of those guys that he was always on. I mean, there was never a day that I saw Chesley in a bad mood. And the one morning, we used to have a segment called The Spot to Be, where Chesley would have to physically leave the station and run down to the corner. They wanted it to be like the Today Show Plaza, where there were people, and there was a coffee shop on the corner, the Spot, right at the corner of Chippewa and Delaware, if people who are familiar with Buffalo. And he would physically, during the show, run down to the spot and interview people about different events in the community. And one of his first mornings, he's running down the sidewalks, a sheet of ice. And right in front of, as he gets into camera view in front of the Spot, he kind of slips, but he catches himself and he just breaks into this James Brown dance and just plays it off just effortlessly. He goes, I've been wanting to do that on TV for a long time. And then just rolls into what he's doing. He was just an incredible personality. I mean, you run through the list as I'm thinking about it now. We've had such a great group of people there, from Tracy Carlos, my first co-anchor on the weekends, to Mary Alice Demler, my first Daybreak co-anchor, to Jody Johnston, who I worked with for several years on the morning show, and with Melissa and Patrick now. It's just a family. We've had a lot of great people, and I work as, you're kind of separated from a bulk of the staff working in the early morning hours. So those are the people that I would list as my favorite personalities, but I honestly can't say I've ever worked with someone at Channel 2 that I didn't like and didn't feel close to. So as for my favorite story, from a personal hockey fan standpoint, my favorite story was covering Patrick Kane at the draft. I had done a story when he had just come back from the World Juniors, and he was I think he was number 10 on Central Scouting's projected list, and no one was really paying much attention to him in Buffalo or across the country. But my kids were in youth hockey at the time, and he was the talk of the Buffalo youth hockey circuit certainly. And I kept saying, we got to do something with this kid. We got to do something. So I did a piece, had Pierre Maguire in it, in January, and Pierre projected at that point that he was going number 1 overall. And we went up to London, interviewed him up there. He and Sam Gagne were just kind of messing around, shooting the puck around, because they had just got back from World Juniors. Interviewed his whole family back here, and it turned out to be a great piece. So when it came time for the draft, I called his mom and his dad, who owned the Jeep dealership in the town where I live now, actually. And I said, hey, would you mind if we came to the draft with you guys and kind of followed you along during the day? And they said, no, that'd be great. That'd be phenomenal. So we were with them at lunch, outside it was a beautiful day in Columbus, and, following, they had kind of half of South Buffalo with them as an entourage. And then we go into the arena and get ready for the draft. And we're all set to interview him in the bowl, catch the whole thing. And half hour before the draft's set to begin, someone from the league who I had been working with said, bad news, TSN and whatever the U.S. network that's changed names several times over the years. They said they've got the broadcast rights. They're not going to allow any other camera in the bowl. So I'm like, oh, all right. They said, well, you're going to interview Pat and his family before, right? Just leave the microphone on him. And when you hear his name called, have your cameraman step out right to this point. You can get a shot of the podium and then sneak back off. So sure enough, his name's called. We step out. We get a great shot of him coming down the line, giving his mom, his grandpa, and who I learned later, my mom worked with in City Hall. Buffalo is a small town. Everyone knows each other at some level. But we got that, and he came down the aisle, and, the Blackhawks immediately took him, and we interviewed him backstage, and then the whole 9 yards. And then we're waiting they've got a reception area set up for friends and family of the top 5 draft picks. And you may as well have been in a bar on Seneca Street, because the place was full of Patrick Kane's friends and family. I think the other 5 draft picks had 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people with them, and that was about it. Kaner had the place packed. So we're waiting for him to come up. And he's got my microphone, so I can't do my stand-up, my report that I've got to file for the 11 o'clock news. Can't do anything at this point. So we're waiting for him. Gets to be 9 o'clock, and he comes in. I go, great. Congratulations, Patrick. Where's my microphone? He goes, oh, yeah, the NHL lady took it. I'm like, do you have any idea how many NHL ladies are in this building right now? What NHL? So I fly back, and there was one room that I saw where they're kind of congregating. And I go into the room, and I see the microphone on the far desk. It's like something out of a movie. And I kind of sneak in. There's no one in the room. Sneak in across the room, reach across the desk, grab the microphone. Then I hear a voice behind me. Is that your microphone? And it's Dave Keon. And I turn around, I go, yeah. And he goes, do you know how nervous you made a lot of people? Because he's talking with agents, he's talking behind the scenes with, and I said, Dave, there are 3 things you can be rest assured of. First of all, my photographer is not going to shoot anything that he doesn't see. So he wasn't rolling on anything when Patrick wasn't in the bowl. 2, that microphone doesn't have a huge range. So even if he was rolling, you're not going to pick up on anything. And 3, the most important thing is, at some point in my career from this point on, I want to do something with the NHL. So I'm not going to run anything that's got the potential of embarrassing anyone. And he just kind of chuckles. He goes, so at that point, it was a rush back to the NBC affiliate in Columbus to file our report and get it all put together. But that was, I think, one of my favorite days at work in the last 25 years, and possibly my career. There have been more hard-hitting news stories that I've done, obviously, but that was just it was a great day of reporting. It was a great day for Buffalo sports, and it was I was extremely happy with the story that came out of it.
Well, and Patrick only played 1 year with the London Knights as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have his autograph too. One of my friends actually got him to sign an 8x10 photo for me. So, but I was gonna say, do you think there's any chance he might end up finishing his career up with the Sabres in his hometown?
I would love to see that. But if Chicago's smart, they're gonna have him retire a Blackhawk.
I was gonna say
he's arguably the greatest U.S.-born player in league history at this point, and I will stress arguably, knowing there are guys like Chris Chelios and Brian Lake out there.
Mike McDonald from Michigan, Pat LaFontaine.
Patty is Madonna. I'm kind of oddly enough, we got invited to Patrick's high school, his draft party, but he goes, I asked him, is this a high school graduation party or a draft party? And he says, well, if you ask me, it's a draft party. If you ask my grandfather, it's a graduation party. And I was going to get him a Mike Modano rookie card, because he was born in the year Modano was drafted. So and first overall, if I remember correctly, as well. So it was, he's in good company, but you would certainly wouldn't be out of place mentioning him in the list of top NHL players born in the U.S.
I was gonna say, yeah, and I'm a huge Chris Chelios fan too. I'm a Red Wings fan. I hated him when he played for Chicago and Montreal, but when he came to Detroit, he just fit in with Detroit. And now he actually, I think he had a Cheli's restaurant in Detroit for many years and stuff, but he's still a part of Detroit and still comes back to be a Red Wing alumni. So the people there have embraced him after hating him for many years.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens, right?
Yes, that's true. So I was going to say, I just got a couple more questions for you, Pete, and I'll let you go.
Sure.
The next one I wanted to ask you is, I don't know if I can really ask you this one. I was going to ask you anyways, what is the hardest aspect of the industry, if there is any, and what makes the industry, why you enjoy it, passionate so much?
Well, I think I think the hardest part of the industry and why a lot of people don't stick with it coming out of college is because they don't believe their college professors that say you're going to be poor for many years working in this industry. And I have got a lot of people that I went to college with that were communications and broadcast majors that didn't stick with it just because they didn't want to work hard enough for long enough that they could make a living at it, and they switched to sales or something else because it is a grind. I mean, my first radio job, I was making $10,000 a year, and I ended up leaving because the general manager owed me 5 weeks' pay, and the check bounced. So, as you can imagine, $10,000 a year in 87, that wasn't a lot even in 87. And then, not having a lot and going through that. But it was the first time I ever worked one job in this industry is when I came home to Buffalo. I was working in Rochester, full-time radio and full-time TV. And I think there are a lot of people that look at this as a way to make a living, I guess, for lack of a better term, and get disappointed that they're not making more of a living. Whereas, the people who really stick are the ones who look at it as a passion, and it's not their job, it's what they do. And I think the thing that drives me the most is being able to share stories about people's hometowns. I mean, you mentioned off the top, one of the regular stories I do are unknown stories of Western New York. And they're kind of lesser known stories of the region that people had never heard or didn't know that aspect of it. For example, the story I did yesterday was regarding the real life Von Trapp family from The Sound of Music. And, just about everyone knows The Sound of Music. There are so many people who love The Sound of Music, but I think a lot of people, especially in Western New York, didn't realize that A, the Von Trapp family is a real family. They still have a lodge and a resort in Stowe, Vermont. And B, Maria Von Trapp and the 5 Von Trapp girls started their citizenship process and the paperwork coming across in Niagara Falls. So their first paperwork on their road to citizenship was filled out in Niagara Falls, New York. And in fact, when I called and got a hold of Sam Von Trapp, the grandson of Maria and the Baron Von Trapp, he and his father were under the impression that they came across at Niagara as part of a tour. It was just, where they crossed on that occasion. They didn't realize. And I said, well, so the records I found in the National Archives have got the certificate of commitment, I think is what they call it, that you're applying for permanent residency in the United States. And he called me back. He goes, I saw those documents and I'm blown away. He goes, yeah, you just taught me something about my family. So to be able to, they're not stories that are going to blow the lid off of Watergate, but they're stories when I can get a text or an email from someone who says, I grew up here, I never knew that about my city. I pass by that every day, I didn't realize it. It's kind of neat. I've always been a history buff, and to be able to combine both of those passions and the fact that they allow me to do it. I mean, my first unknown story that really got the attention of my bosses and made them say, well, maybe you're onto something here, was about a warplane, Russian warplane that was found in an Arctic lake in Siberia. And they pulled the plane out. It was a Russian, painted up with Russian logos, and a British warplane recovery group pulled it out, and they brought it back to this organization in Great Britain, and they found out that this plane was built at the Bell factory in Niagara Falls, New York, cool, and sold to the Russians as part of the Lend-Lease program. And then the local aerospace museum here in Buffalo bought the plane, brought it back, and they were restoring it to the way it was found, and going to display it. And they were doing all the work in the very hangar that it was built, and they were able to trace the lineage back to Christmas Eve, 1941, that it left the Bell factory on its way to Russia. And that story gained national and international attention. It led to a story about the pilot that was still found in the plane, that the family in Russia had no idea, no closure whatsoever. They got his medals back. They got his flight records back. And it wound up winning an Emmy, an Associated Press Award, and an Edward R. Murrow Award. And it was one of those where, at that point, my bosses at the station were kind of like, okay, we'll let you do those. From that point on, they're saying, okay, what other stories do you have? So that's when it became a regular feature, and it's been just nothing but rewarding ever since.
For my audience, how often do you do it? Do you do it once a week, or you try to do a story every day?
I do it once a week.
Once a week, okay.
Yeah, it's just it'd be too difficult to do it every day. But every so often, I'll compile them into a half-hour special that'll run on holidays or times that they need local programming to fill. But they run every Tuesday morning at 6:40 on our morning show. But they're also on our website, WGRZ.com, by 7:30 every Tuesday morning. And there's also, if you search WGRZ.com unknowns, there's a whole section of the stories I've done over the past several years.
Okay. Definitely cool. Just got two more questions for you, and that's it, Pete. Is that okay? Are you okay for a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay, no problem. I really appreciate you coming on, too. I love talking to people and getting to know them. So my next one I was going to ask you, for some of my audience, do you have any hobbies and favorite music that you like listening to as well?
Yeah, I do. I play a little guitar, not very well. Maybe you can see my stack of guitars in the corner.
Cool. I did not know that about you.
Yeah, I will. I don't play well enough to say I play guitar.
Okay.
I strum along with stuff, but yeah, that's one of my hobbies. I try to get out and play as many sports as I can. I haven't gotten out and played soccer in a while, which I really need to get back out and do that some more. And I have to, every so often I'll get back out and play lacrosse with the guys I played lacrosse with when I was a kid. So that's kind of my hobbies. Plus my wife and I, we like to go out and catch bands whenever we can. And, do some brewery tours and winery tours and that sort of thing. And as for music, my musical tastes and I'm kind of annoying to a lot of people because I get stuck on certain bands and I just will listen to them nonstop throughout. But currently, I'd say I'm on a tragically hip kick.
Yeah.
I spent many years on a Great Big Sea kick. I've always that's also one of the hidden joys of living in a border town. You get a lot of these regionally big bands that people don't know in other parts of the country. The Bare Naked Ladies, until they did If I Had $1 Million, and no one outside of Buffalo or the 200 miles surrounding Toronto that really knew a lot about them. But yeah, Goo Goo Dolls, I'm a big fan of.
Yep.
Growing up, I had hair down. In fact, one high school game, I got called for 2 minutes for high sticking and get a haircut. So I was into the hard rock and heavy metal, a lot of Led Zeppelin, a lot of Who, a lot of Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, Ronnie James Dio, that sort of thing. But so I gravitate towards rock. I like an occasional country song. I worked a lot of country radio over the years, so that kind of grew on me. My musical tastes kind of run the gamut. I am a fan of Flogging Molly and Dropkick Murphys and that Celtic swing of things. Listen to the Alan Doyle Band now that Great Big Sea is no more. And, it's a wide variety of stuff.
I just had a local Buffalo guy on a couple weeks ago, Scott Salini. I don't know if you've heard. Yeah, really nice guy, loves the Bills, and he came on and talked to me for over an hour as well, and he really appreciate him coming on too, and he likes to perform a lot of Tom Petty too. Yeah,
Scott and I actually played Sweet Home Alabama on the morning show one early morning. He played it very well. I played it not so much.
Cool. Okay. And this is going to be a quick question before I let you go. This is going to be a yes or no. I had to ask you this because I know you're a sports fan and you're a Sabres fan. I was going to ask you, yes or no, Jack Eichel remains a Sabre next year?
It's a tough call, but I'm gonna say yes, and just because of the way Jack has kind of played this, holding out for the neck surgery, not really being committal on long-term commitment to the team, that all brings stock down, especially with being out for half the season and the uncertainty of a neck injury. I don't think the Sabres would get full value if they dealt him right now. And he's an elite talent, so you wouldn't want to give him ship him off to any team unless you were getting what he's worth. I mean, this team tanked for 2 years for him, so it's so I'm gonna say yes. Jack Eichel remains a Sabre for next season.
Okay. I was going to say, maybe next time, if you do come on again in the future, I hope we can talk maybe a little bit more about your Buffalo Bills, because the expectations in Buffalo are really high now. And I was going to, maybe next time we'll talk more about the Bills, and if you come on and get your 2 cents on the 2021 team.
Oh, I'd love to. And we could do a whole hour on the confusion over the same ownership, but such a different culture from the Bills to the Sabres, and how that has come to be.
Definitely. So. Okay, definitely. And my last question, quick. Do you have any advice for anyone, not just myself, but who's watching to pursue a career in broadcasting, TV, or radio, etc.?
Do it. It's basically, there are a lot of small town radio stations around, and there's no such thing as starting too small. Get your experience. Get on the air wherever you can if you want to be on the air. And just do it. I had a person who was working at Channel 2 years ago as an overnight photographer, and he always wanted to be a reporter. And I said, he's hoping to break into reporting through photography at Channel 2. And I said, there's no opening here for reporter. If you want to be a reporter, go be a reporter. And it's if you have the passion and the perseverance, you'll get there. You'll get there.
Oh, definitely. Okay. Well, thank you, Pete. And like I said, and that's what a lot of the guys have told me on here too. Just practice and getting your reps, and keep at it. Just keep plugging away.
Yep. And be a pest. Be a pest to those general managers or the program directors, and just keep saying, "Hey, what can I do? I'll do anything. I'd love to help you out in any way I can, and intern or whatever." So.
And I'm very lucky too. I've got all these platforms too, and I'm like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter Live, and then I'm on all these audio things. So you gotta just keep working at it. But hey, Pete, I was gonna say thank you so much. I probably kept you longer than I originally was planning to, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, and I hope again maybe you can come back on again in the future, and we'll maybe talk a little more about the Buffalo Bills.
Yep, absolutely. I'm an Irishman. I love to talk. No worries. It's been a pleasure, Chris.
Thank you, Pete. And can you just let people know where they can find you again on TV?
Yes, you can find me at WGRZ.com. We're Channel 2. I think we're carried on a lot of the cable systems up in Southern Ontario and Toronto, and so you can catch me mornings from 5 until 7 a.m. And you can always look up my stories, Unknown Stories of Western New York, on WGRZ.com.
Okay. Well, again, Pete, thank you so much for your time, and we'll definitely keep in touch with you.
You got it. Looking forward to it.
Okay. Thanks, Pete. Have a great night.
You too. See you next time, Chris.
You too. Thanks, bud. Anyways, guys, I want to say thanks to Pete Gallivan from WGR Channel 2 in Buffalo. Great guy to talk to, and hopefully next time when he comes back on, we'll talk maybe a little bit more about the Buffalo Bills. I probably kept him a little longer than I was originally planning to, but Pete's a really good guy, and he's been in the industry for a long time. And like I said, I really appreciate him coming on. So, hey, everybody who watches this live or later on audio, thank you so much. And before I head out, I'm just going to do comments. Mark Richardson, good guest. Thank you, Mark. Pete's a good guy. Follow him on WGR.com. He loves his soccer, he loves his hockey, he loves sports. So yeah, please follow him there. Thank you for watching, Mark. I really appreciate it. And like I said, guys, before I head out, let's see. 30 Minutes Live with CDP podcast. The audio version is now on Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Spotify. So if you prefer to listen to me on audio instead of seeing me on live video, you can do that as well. So anyways, guys, and I'm just going to put on my next guest here, and that's going to be this Friday. Just 1 second. I'm going to have former Major League Baseball pitcher Jerry Royce is my guest this Friday at 7 o'clock. Jerry had a 20-plus year career in the major leagues, and Jerry Royce is one of 29 players ever to play in 4 decades in Major League Baseball, 1969 to 1990. He was originally drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals. He was a 2-time National League All-Star in 75 and 80. He threw a no-hitter June 27th, 1980 against the San Francisco Giants, and he helped the Los Angeles Dodgers win the 1981 World Series over the Yankees and had a win in that series. And he was also the runner-up for the Cy Young Award in 1980 to Philadelphia's Steve Carlton. And Jerry Royce had over 220 career wins. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Jerry Royce this Friday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 on the West Coast, on 30 Minutes Live with CDP on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and all my audio platforms as well. So, guys, I hope you guys can all tune into that. And like I said, I want to say thank you all for watching 30 Minutes Live with CDP. And again, thank you to Pete Gallivan from WGR Channel 2 in Buffalo for coming on. Great guest, great guy. And I'm looking forward to Friday night. So I'm going to call it a show. So we'll see you guys Friday night at 7 o'clock with former Major League Baseball pitcher and World Series champion with the LA Dodgers, Jerry Royce, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 on the West Coast. We'll see you then. Thanks again for watching 30 Minutes Live with CDP.